Hey, I hope everyone's doing well. I am excited to introduce to you Jason Dukes, PCC. I think that stands for Professional Certified Coach, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I did that because typically my name on Zoom is like Reverend Fun and Play. So I just was like, let me put my professional name on here.
True. Although I do like Reverend Fun and Play. And so Jason is a professional certified coach, and we met during accomplishment coaching, which is a year-long leadership development program. And he was one of the ambassadors and the leadership, what's it called? Leadership and training, to be a program leader. And he was involved with accomplishment coaching for a while. And he was actually my coach for a while. I forgot how long, but everyone that asks me like about it, I'm like, yeah, basically our whole 1 hour coaching session would be you saying 3 words, and I would be crying and bawling my eyes out by the end of it.
Yeah, well, and that's what coaching is sometimes. Like it's whatever the person needs to get to the other side of whatever it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the space to do it.
Yeah, but honestly, I think that's what a great coach, like the fact that you literally did not have to say anything and just stare at me, or like you probably won't even stare. You're just like break down crying.
Yeah, I remember those.
Good times, good times. Is that like that with all of your clients?
No. So I mean, just to give you a little bit of background about who I typically work with, um, like I'm super relaxed. Like I'm a beach guy. Like I live down in Fort Lauderdale, and the my goal was to be a snowbird, go back and forth between Florida and New Jersey. It looks like I'm gonna be sort of stuck in Florida here for a little bit through the summer, just because I don't want to go back to New Jersey right now. But yeah, I mean, for most of my clients, like I am the calm for them, like the calm, like the elevation, like the person who gets them to slow down to think about what they're doing. So for and I mean, a lot of my clients, they have meditation practices, they do yoga, they're like all over the place, but they're super high performing, like super fast motor, blah blah blah. And still, like even with all of the structure that we have in place, a lot of the times our 1 hour session is the first time that week that they like had a chance to stop and like breathe and really like think about everything that's happening. So yeah, I mean, a lot of times what happens in our session is whatever's missing. It could be crying, it could be breathing, it could be silence, it could be like planning, it could be realizing what they're missing out. But it ends up being one of the things that like drives their like kind of the thing that puts their next week on a path. And so it's not right or wrong. Like with you, it was probably just an emotional release that you needed to like then make the tangent and have the next week be powerful. So yeah, it's different with all of my clients.
Yeah, I do think that it's because I also have a meditation practice, yoga practice, and all that. But yeah, I think like it's different, right? Like I feel like when you have like that one-on-one coaching session, it's whatever I need in the moment, right? So yeah, I think that's the thing. I'm curious, what made you choose the name Captain's Chair Coaching?
Yeah. So some of the interests that I have are I love motorsports, auto racing. I love boats. I love planes. And all of those, like there's a version of like a captain, like the person who's in charge. So yeah, the captain's chair coaching. I don't even know where. Honestly, I don't know like what the moment where it was like captain, but I think honestly the slogan probably came before the name. Like just like look, I want to help people be the captain in their life, and then it turned into like, oh, well, then captain share coaching. So um, I barely use social media, but like the hashtags or whatever, like be your captain or at be your captain. Then from there came captain share coaching, and from there. But yeah, and then and then it evolved even further from that of like what's my style of coaching, and it's a lot of helping people be their captain and be their most powerful self by again like the space that I give them. So
You know, it's funny. One of the moments I remember the most about our interactions. There are many, but I remember like one of the most peaceful moments of my life was when we were at the beach and we were just staring at the waves in Asbury Park.
yeah,
It was like so relaxing. It was like so pleasant. But I remember even actually that day, I think I was like very confronted.
it's confronting for people. I'll tell you one of the amazing things that I don't understand but do understand because it's where I evolved from is like my life is most people's vacations.
Hmm.
Like people come and they see me on their vacation and they're like, one of the best parts of my vacation was? And they're like, the day that I spent with you. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. And, so my brain is like, well, why don't you do that more? Because that's what I do 365 days of the year.
Mm.
Like my life is like most people's best days on their vacation. Like I don't get why people I don't know how our society has been set up where like people don't live like that. Like like why is it so much more why is life that's how did life and working and all that stuff come that significant that you can't like enjoy your days, you know?
Yeah, it's ironic because I read a lot of billionaire biographies. I just finished Turner, the guy who started like CNN, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, and it's funny because like I feel like a lot of these like billionaire biographies, I feel like it's so relatable because like for me, like just being able to like literally just sit still and do nothing is like it's like a challenge sometimes, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I may challenge you to do is read the final chapter of most of their biographies.
uh-huh.
Like what they said, and I'm sorry, I'm probably going to get emotional saying this, but like what they said when they were about to die.
Mm.
Where they look back on it and was like, well, I wish I would have enjoyed this. I wish I'd enjoyed that. I wish I'd enjoyed this. Like, I wish I'd enjoyed that. I wish I would have been there for that. I wish I would have been there for that. And like, how the money doesn't actually buy any of it back. Um, and so, yeah, I think, like a lot of times when we read biographies of billionaires and stuff, again, like, I think everyone sees what they want to see. Like, I probably skip to the end because that's the chapter that fits my life of like, oh yeah, look, like they're telling everybody to enjoy the moment. Meanwhile, most people probably read it and they're like reading for the hustle and the grind part and stuff like that. So people are looking for whatever they need to hear in it.
Mm.
Yeah, but the part that I typically pick out is what they say in the end when they're just reminiscing back and like saying how they wish their life actually would have been.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think like the U.S., our society, I think it's more of like a achieving society where I feel like maybe like in Eastern societies and stuff like that, it's more about like community and like everyone like the collective whole instead of like kind of just like, oh, I'm gonna beat everyone, I'm gonna score the most points, like I'm gonna win this competition and stuff like that. So I think like even at a young age it's kind of like ingrained in us to like try to be like number one, you know.
Yeah, 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 or just work. Like I look back at my parents and they weren't necessarily that competitive or anything like that. They were just ingrained like work, just work, like work and like this is the best that it gets, and this is where you are, and you know you can explore and different things like that. Like my dad probably more than my mom was an explorer. Like I think I got the exploring from him, but you know, I learned with my eyes. Like man, I was interviewed for a podcast a couple weeks ago, and like I know that you're a huge reader, and the guy was asking me, he's like, so what's like, tell me like the past 3 books that you've read or whatever, and like I don't have them. Like I don't read. Like I barely read. Like I learn with my eyes. Like I learn through experience. Like I take long drives and like look at things. Like you know, I was thinking about this earlier today because it's when I saw that the links said like LinkedIn on it, and it was like that's right. Like you know, like I know people, and like I love LinkedIn, right? And I know people that like solely do most of their business on LinkedIn. Like that's how they find connections and stuff like that. It's like I don't. I drive around like my real estate connections. It's like I got them because I drove around neighborhoods and like looked at the signs. You know, like in real estate, people aren't shy. Like if you're building a big building, like the whole building is wrapped with who the construction company is, who the finance company is, you know, who the developers are, who the agents are. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm calling. You know?
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I feel like sometimes like there's like theory and then there's like the experience, right? I think like it's good to have both. I think obviously, you know, but I do think a lot of times people are too ingrained into the theory where it's like, I'm gonna watch all these travel documentaries and then it's like, well, you can or
just go
out and experience it.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you know, and people are going to do whatever it is they're comfortable with. Like that's it's the one that I'm comfortable with. Like I like walking around neighborhoods. I like getting in cars, driving. Like I like doing that. So you know, for me, it's just finding what I like and not. The biggest thing is not guilting myself for the things that I don't like. You know, like. Yeah, and I mean, I'll share this with both you and people listening. Like when I first, actually not even when I first started, but probably the first half of my existence as a coach was stuck in this weird place of like, not only figuring out like how I was going to reach out to clients and how I was going to get clients, but like then guilting myself that I didn't do what other people were doing. You know, because I mean, I mean, the way accomplishment coaching is set up, like you go through and you have 23 other classmates, right? Like you have 23 other people who are basically trying to do the same thing that you're doing, which is set up a coaching company, right?
Yeah.
And so for some people, like, you know, LinkedIn works, or some people Yelp works, or some people, you know, making funnels through websites work. Some people Facebook videos work, like some, like, you know, whatever. And it's like, it took me a long time to realize that it's like, well, you know, mine is just exploring, going to racetracks, going to like networking events with real estate people, like, you know, that's my thing. Like, and if I do that and actually make it work, that I don't have to do the other things. And then to not guilt myself into it, because it's tough, like especially now when a lot of the ways that I used to network or get clients, like it's like I have to reinvent because they're you know I can't go to an auto race right now. There's no auto racing right now, you know. And honestly, when we go back to auto racing, I'm gonna be wearing a damn mask on my face, so it's like, you know, it takes away some of the you know, some of the personality and some of what used to happen there. But yeah, I started this period of like quarantine by feeling really bad because I would see all these coaches like doing podcasts, doing different things like that, and it's like, well, that's not the stuff that I do. And it's like, well, you know, and I get it. It's just not me or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I just have to figure it out and not make myself guilty for that. That's not the way that I do it.
Totally off tangent, but who's your favorite race car driver?
Well, I know them all. So, well, I shouldn't say I know them all. Like, I don't know any. Well, I don't know any current Formula One drivers like on the worldwide circuit, but like all the American drivers and stuff. Like, I know I like grew up with them and all that stuff. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I'm weird because it's like it's my business. Like I root for like a good race. I root for like,
Huh?
if there's some underdog or like if somebody's about to go out of business, I'm like rooting for them. Or if I know somebody, like the family members or whatever. Uh, One of my all-time favorite people and like who also races, a guy named Brendan Gaughan, who's a NASCAR driver. Um, just a super guy. But I mean, there's a bunch. Antron Brown in drag racing. Eric Enders in drag racing, Brendan Gaughan, Coy Gibbs on the NASCAR side. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the sports car racing guys, like I'm pretty, Peter Cunningham, guys like that, like very tight with them just because of the working relationship that I have.
Hmm. Yeah, I never really like, got into it, but I remember reading some of their biographies, like, of course. And the second man, like the discipline and the practice and like the psychological and the physical that they have to endure. I'm like, dude, like that's crazy. Like I didn't realize like how much goes into it, but it's exhausting. It's like
Yeah, no, it really is exhausting. You're gonna have to all this stuff gets lifted, like you're gonna have to come to the racetrack for sure.
want
The
to.
big thing, the cool thing that's happening in motorsports right now is iRacing. That like it's the world's evolved. I mean, well, it's like a forced evolution from like live events to that. Like now we have to race virtually on either computers or Xboxes or PlayStations, and then those races actually get aired on TV, like a real race. Like if you haven't seen it, like go watch it. It's pretty incredible what they've done in a pretty short period of time.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it's very competitive. It's like
Yeah,
some of those people like their coordination is just their it's like I'm like, dude, like that's ridiculous. I don't know how you're doing that.
yeah, it is. It's pretty. And if you go to the racetracks and see it like in person, it's just like the real speed, like how fast they're really going and how loud it is and how hot it is and all the hows. Like it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it just goes to like what's so awesome about doing this work because I used to be pretty like closed-minded about that stuff. I'm like, oh, they're all a bunch of like, I'm not gonna name it because that's like not cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just being from like the Northeast and like New York City and all that, it's like, why would I even care about that, right? But then I feel like now that I'm like, because of the work that we do with self-development and coaching, I'm like open to it. I'm like, oh, actually, like, and then I've been noticing a lot of these famous Formula One racers and all these are getting interviewed at some of my favorite podcasters. And I'm like, dude, like that guy is a freaking genius. Like
Oh yeah.
he's like, he could be compared to like Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, like just in terms of like everything they go through, right? And I'm like, wow, respect.
Yeah. No, well, they're like a Jordan. They're on the top of their game, and they're so much on the top of their game that they don't even have to think about it. Like it just becomes a motor skill. Like I love watching like race car. I mean, some of them they're just like crazy. Like I have from a fan standpoint, like I have a little bit of a weird like recollection. Like they're showing a whole bunch of like vintage races on TV now because there's just nothing else to show.
Yeah.
And like I'll look at the just along the bottom of the screen, like I'll look at the name of the race and the year, and it's like, oh, I remember that race. That's so and so won that race, and so like crashed out that race.
Yeah.
But like the drivers, they're like football quarterbacks where it's like they remember every lap. They're like, oh yeah, that's the race where on lap 62 this happened, and then and it's like, how do you remember that? Like how do you remember that? Like
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, just because it's becoming more popular in the US, like formula specifically, but it's like in other countries, it's like as big, if not bigger than like the NFL, right?
Oh yeah,
it's like huge. And I'm like, wow, like it's just crazy how we live on our own worlds because like, you know, if you ask most people like in New York City, like, hey, like, have you watched any Formula One? They'd be like, wait, what? But like outside of it, it's like they're like the same as like soccer players, and like they're just huge, right? It's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. It's amazing. I mean, the U.S. sports market is pretty amazing because I mean, like, you know, worldwide football isn't like American football isn't that huge. Like American baseball isn't necessarily that huge. It's, you
Yeah,
know, it's a soccer, motorsports, cricket world.
yeah,
You know, rugby, like those are. Um, I mean, in fact, if you go to Nike football, it's not American football. It takes you to soccer. It takes you to a soccer site. Like,
mhm.
um, you know, it's pretty weird how much of an island we are in America. Well, specifically specifically the United States of America when it comes to sports.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. I feel like we're, you know, we talked about so many different topics today, but I think like one of the cool things like that what we talk about a lot is just like you don't necessarily have to like work hard to be successful. Like I think there's a way to be successful just by having grace and just being and like the doing aspects of things. So it sounds like you know, my experience of you is like you're very good at just being in the world.
Yeah, well, and there's work. Like I don't want to make it sound like there's no work and like just like you know like there's just random knocks on my door every day and like you know like oh what are you? I'm a client. Like oh thank you. I just have to be. I have to. I can't really say I have to be strategic about it because I think everyone's strategic about it. There's just not much of a for people like me. There's not much of a game plan because like people who have a high motor and like are very active and like really like there's a bunch of guys like every podcaster is probably one of those. It's like I wake up really early and I go to sleep really late and I crush it and blah blah blah. And it's like yeah, you guys have like people to follow. Like the people like me, you can't find them because it's like, you know, they're like, if you want to follow me, come surfing. It's like, well, but like I want to learn what to do, and they're like, yeah, this I'm doing it right now, I'm surfing, and it's like, oh, I get it. You know, so I think a lot of it is just figuring it out, like, and for me, it's just like just figuring out how to make it as simple as possible, like knowing. I mean, again, like you know, knowing what my vision is, knowing what my mission is, like having some milestones, and then just having some actions that are aligned with those, just to make sure that those things happen. And in my case, happen as simple as possible, because not necessarily now, but during normal life, like you know, enjoying my life and getting to the beach and doing other things are way more important than working. Like I'd much rather do those things than work.
Yeah, I know, you know, you moved down to Florida, and I think a lot of people, I think like people are just like afraid of, I guess, like uncomfortable or just it being an unknown situation. So what, I guess, like, how does one act despite fears or, you know, uncomfortableness?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, get a coach, get a coach, but two, like, yeah, I finally did it, but it's not like I didn't do it outside of my normal pattern. You know, like I did it, but I did it within my pattern. Like I, you know, like basically got to I wouldn't necessarily say rock bottom with New Jersey, but it was like I had this plan of being a snowbird and whatever, and it finally was just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like this is totally done. Like I'm totally finished. And then I did the work to do it, and still almost like set it up to play a little bit of a sabotage game of like I came down here. I was homeless for the first month. Like I didn't have a great plan to come down here. Like I got in the car and drove down here because I realized if I didn't do that, I wasn't going to come. So yeah, I got down here and then like had a hard time. I mean, get it right? Like this was still during normal time. Like I was trying to find a seasonal place in you know either Miami or Fort Lauderdale in the beginning of the season that was supposed to be a normal season. Like no one was talking about viruses or anything like that back then. Uh, you know, so it took me some time to actually find like a furnished apartment that I liked with, you know, that met all my conditions of satisfaction. So I was hopping between hotels, and my mom was generous with some of the timeshares that she had.
Um,
But yeah, just I did it. I had support throughout. Uh, not just from like my coach, but my community. Like, you were checking in on me, like a whole bunch of AC people were checking in on me, like people checked in. But um, one of the things that I will say that I've learned from the big, like, getting outside of my comfort zone things is like, just do it, because it's like there a lot of people kick the can down the road because they're like, well, if I kick it down the road, like, I'll kick it far enough where it won't feel bad when I do it. Like, I'll like have the confidence to do it at some point. It's like, no, it's not true. It's probably gonna feel bad whenever you do it. So you might as well just do it now.
mhm.
Like, I was ready to move to Florida and it still felt terrible.
Mhm.
For as much as it was everything that I wanted, it still was me getting outside of my comfort zone.
I'm curious, like during that month, I'm sure you had like moments where you're kind of like, oh my God, like why, you know what I mean? Like, were there like moments where you're kind of like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, every day. But I think that's one of the benefits of coaching and being a coach is like when you're being coached, when you're being coached, like as a client, like you have a chance to reflect on what's happening in your life, and it's like, oh wait, that's not what I was planning on doing. But also as a coach, like, I sit through 3 or 4 hours a day of listening to people like say their stuff and realizing like, oh shoot, that's me too. Like, I'm doing that same thing.
Right.
Uh, and I say all that, but it was also probably the best month. It was probably also the best month of the summer, of the winter, because it was just like, I love that. I love just everything being a free fall exploration. Like, no day is going to be the same. It was a lot of work though. I mean, it's a lot of work. I don't want to mix like homeless up with like on the street or whatever. I just didn't have a home, and it's actually a lot of work, like constantly every day, like looking at sites to find out which hotel deals are best, and then packing your stuff up and moving and stuff like that. So, yeah, it took away from the main reason why I wanted to be here, which was like networking and being at the beach. So, yeah, as soon as I got into this place, then I was able to focus on that, like, enjoying my life, enjoying my social life, and building my business with some local contacts down here.
Hmm. And so how long have you been in Florida so far?
Since the beginning of November. Was supposed to be 6 months, like go back and forth 6 months. So the end of May is going to be the time where I was supposed to leave, but I'll likely stay down here, or we'll find out what happens. I'm sorry, the end of May. We'll find out what the world looks like at the end of May.
Mhm.
You know.
And then would you drive back up or would
Yeah, yeah. I mean, depending on how long I plan on staying, how long I stay. Like, I have more stuff in New Jersey than I did down here. Like, if I could leave stuff down here and just fly back up to New Jersey and still have a car and stuff like that up there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had to drive down here just because I needed to bring stuff down here.
I see. I feel like a lot of people like have these ideas, like you said, and they just kick the can, right? And then like I feel like a lot of people don't even know like where to like find a coach, right? Like honestly, I didn't even know about it until I went to like some random networking event, and then I met Jocelyn, who kept inviting me out like a billion times, and I finally was like, all right, like I'll give this thing a shot. But I feel like the majority of people like don't even know where to find a coach.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough thing, and that I will tell you, I fail at that pretty miserably, because I mean, the thing that I would say is like, Eric, go online and type life coach, and it's like I probably wouldn't even come up, which is I guess a problem in my business. Although, I mean, my business is pretty targeted, right? Like, I know who I'm going after, and pretty much like know that I can coach and win with the people that I coach. But yeah, I would say to start, I mean, go online and just type life coach, and and search the thing, and like, have, like, if you're really interested in getting a coach, like, set up powerful sessions with some coaches, and do do sample session. Most coaches should allow you to do a sample session probably for free, and do that. And then from there, figure out which coach. And it's coaching, right? So it's not, it's like physical training. It's not necessarily the coach that you like the best. It's the one that you know is going to help you get to, it's honestly, it's the one that your goals need, not the one that you like the most. And so, and I think most coaches are open to that. Like I'd refer a lot of people, like people come to me and I realize that either I'm not the right coach for them, or you know, they can't afford my price, or whatever it is, or, you know, it's just not a match. Like I'll try to match them up with someone who they are. And also, I will tell you that some people come to me because they heard that they need a life coach, and they actually don't need, like, so, and for instance, I mean, other than racing, a lot of my clients are in real estate. And so I get a lot of people who come to me and like, they actually need a consultant more than they need a coach. Like, because our sessions, they're just asking me how to do it. I know how to do it, but that's not my business. Like, I'm not in the business of telling people how to do it. And so sometimes with those folks, it's actually just sending them in a different direction of like, yeah. But I would say have a conversation with a coach and do it that way. Like one of the hard parts about our society now is people don't necessarily have conversations anymore. It's like, well, but is there something I can click and like just keep clicking until I find the perfect thing? And it's like, yeah, probably not with a coach. You know, probably not with a coach.
Huh.
So
That's interesting. So you did mention like sometimes you'll refer someone to like a different coach. How do you necessarily know like which coach you would want to refer that person to? Is it just
it's just feeling. You know, especially like if the person is going through something that I know someone else has gone through, or if they need, like that, if I know that the essence of the person is what they need, like, you know, I'll send them their way. Yeah.
That's interesting because I get the reason why I'm asking is like when I reached out to Christine Sachs to be my coach, she actually recommended Bob Conklin and Westman, and then I ended up going with Laura Westman. But I guess I was just curious as to like what about my request prompted her like, I think actually you should have a sample session with Bob and Laura.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can't speak for Christine. She could have different reasons, but a lot of times it's matching your need with someone else's essence, or just what they're good at, right? Like, I mean, for instance, with me, like, you probably, if you knew someone who was like, hey, tell me about yourself. Yeah, I'm a surfer, and like I'm super peaceful, and I just need someone to motivate me. It's like, yeah, you're probably not going to send them to me. Like,
I see.
you know, I mean, just in theory, right? Like, I mean, you're probably not going to send them to me because it's like, well, like, what are we going to do? Like, we're just going to sit at the beach all day and not actually get anything done. But, you know, if there's a person that's like super type A and like never, you know, is crushing it all the time, but like not getting the results that they want in some parts of their life, and you know that probably what they need is to go chill at the beach and watch the waves. It's like, yeah, like I'm their guy. Well, potentially, like, I don't know, because it still depends on, you know, it has to work. Like, I mean, you know, like, and to have a conversation with someone where you say 3 words and the person cries for an hour, like that's it. I mean, it's extreme relationship, right? Like, I have to be willing to get in an extreme relationship with a person. They have to be willing to get in an extreme relationship with me. Yeah, it actually, it's funny. This really happened. I was at an event for one of my clients, and like, he did this thing where he was like thanking all the people that helped, and like my ego was a little bit hurt because like he didn't thank me. Like, he went around the room and like thanked everybody and didn't thank me. And I was just like afterwards, I was a little bit like butthurt, and I'm just like, hey, like, you didn't you didn't like thank me. And he was just like, in his head, he was like, he had this period where it was just like, I like not that he didn't think he needed to, but it's like it's like, you are me. It's like we're like,
I,
know,
yeah, I get that.
it's like, no, I was thanking everybody on behalf of us. It's like, you are us. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, shit, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm sorry, person, but yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's potentially that close of a relationship.
Yeah, I can relate to that because even during our relationship, I didn't necessarily like thank you every day, right? I just assumed that you knew because you saw the results, right? So I guess I didn't necessarily need to be like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. He had the assumption that like I just knew that like I knew that like I was basically standing up there on stage with him thanking everyone else, because it's like, no, you're like that much part of the team, the family, the everything. Like, um,
Mm.
and I think people try to. It's weird. I shouldn't say it's weird, but people try and get in life coaching relationships and not actually have that connection. And it's like, no, like if you get in a life coaching relationship with me, we're in that relation. Like, we're going to be that connected.
Mm.
Like, I become part of you. Like, I become part of your goals. Like, it is. It's actually that much of a bond.
I do think like the one like I feel well there's a lot of like but I do recall like you're really good at like not consulting, like not telling people what to do.
Mhm.
Actually just like not giving people the answer because I think too often like we have our own stuff and then like our stuff is like, oh well, I'm gonna give them advice. But I think as you know, you're really good at this. Advice doesn't do anything, right? It's sort of like okay, but it doesn't really
Well,
teach you.
yeah, and I agree with you, but not as like a 1,000%. Like, for some people, advice may be what they need,
Right.
but that's not that's not the relationship that I have with most of my clients, though.
Well, I think it might be nice for then, but I think long term advice never really helps you, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of like, well, I could like meditate or I could like read a book about meditation, but I feel like it's not like the same thing, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, and a lot of the people that I work with, like, when my clients ask me for advice, it's usually funny to me, because I mean, I mostly work with, like, when I say extreme visionaries, they're like extreme visionaries, right? So for me, typically the reflection back to them when they're asking me for advice is like, like, the world comes to you for advice. Like, how about this? Like, how about you talk it through? And if you can't hear the advice you're giving to yourself, like, I'll give it back to you. But like, why does the world's visionary in drag racing, or the world's visionary in sports car racing, or like the world's visionary in Fort Lauderdale real estate development and whatever area, like, why are they coming to me for advice? Like,
Mm.
so yeah, so a lot of times it's a reflection. A lot of times when I do, it's weird. Like, it sometimes seems like advice, but it really isn't. It's just rephrasing what they just said, that
Mhm.
they couldn't hear that they said it. I couldn't say it back to them exactly how they said it, because they still wouldn't be able to hear that. So it's like, I have to frame it as if something I came up with, and they're like, "That's genius." I'm like, "I know, yeah, you would say it's genius because you just said it.
Funny.
It's your idea."
Oh, I have an interesting question. So, I feel like this like often like what if someone like changes their priority? So let's say like they come to you with something, right? Let's say like, oh, I want to move to Florida. Like it's like that's like the reason why they came to you, right? And plus like a bunch of other things. But let's say like they're like, oh, actually I'm pivoting. Like I actually no longer want to do that.
Hmm.
How do you like be? Yeah, I guess like I'm curious as to what's your reflection gonna be then?
It really depends. Like, it's hard with coaching, because it's always like you're always looking up for elevation, but at the same time, like, you have to stay true to to the goals and the milestones.
Right.
And sometimes those goals and milestones, like sometimes you go up far enough where you find out that the goals and milestones that you're working on actually came from
Hmm.
either a weird place or from like the old pattern or whatever. And so,
Hmm.
you get some elevation and then just like choosing from the new elevation, but also making sure that like, hey, look, like if we're going to do this, if we're going to choose something new from this new elevation, like then this is what we choose.
Huh.
And then like don't have that become the pattern where like every week the person's like, I got some new awareness, this is the new thing now. And then like, the next week I got some new awareness, this is the thing now. Like because then that becomes a new pattern and then you end up never going anywhere. So it looks a little bit like this where it's like, you're always going up, but you also always want to be going forward.
Hmm.
So it's one of those, it's the art part of coaching, where it's like, how do you do that, Jason? It's like, I don't know. It's just being in a relationship and in the moment.
Right. So it sounds like you always like go high enough that you get at the true source of like whatever it is, right? So it's like not the goal of to kind of like fix something, but it's like what's the reason purpose behind this goal, right? Is it like ego driven, or is it like I guess like I mean maybe even if it is ego driven, right? It's more like getting at the source of like what really it is, right?
Or close to it. Yeah, getting to it or close to it. The other thing that it's hard for probably beginner coach. Actually, it's hard for me too. Is like when coaching, you have to remember that the person being coached is in it. So like, I'll sit with a client and they'll realize something that like they've never realized, and it's like, oh, this is the game changer. Here it is. Like they see it, and they've like declared some new stuff because of this new thing that they saw, and whatever. And then like next week they come back and they're literally like, what did we talk about last week? And it's like, what like it was like the biggest thing ever. And then you like, you check on them to make sure that they're not playing some weird random game. But then like, you actually have a conversation with them and realize that no, they actually they forgot. And then you like repeat some of the stuff and they're like, wow, that's awesome. Like, I wish we would have talked about that earlier. And it's like, wait, you really don't remember? Like, it takes time. I get that. I get the clients who come to me and they're like, dude, I had a really good week. And it's like, oh, good. Tell me about it. And they're like, yeah, me and my wife, we had this conversation about this and she came up with this idea. And so this is what we're doing now. And it's like, dude, I've been saying that for the past 6 months. Like, like, and it's not me. It's like, I've been saying, like, you said it 6 months ago and I've been checking on you for the past 6 months. And now, it's like,
Well,
but whatever. It just is, it's what it is.
the point is like at least you help them get it eventually, even if like you're not necessarily, unless even if they forgot, like that's the source. Because I do think that happens a lot, right? Because I think with coaching, you go through the life and then and then like after a week, like during our next week, I'm like, yeah, I had like the most amazing week, and you're like, why? It's like, yeah, I think like my girlfriend told me like this, and then my manager like said this, and I'm like, yeah, it happens like a lot actually, right?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, like it's the coaching session opened the space up for the person to be able to hear it from someone else.
Because I think you like when you get to like the subconscious, like that's how you know it works, right? Because you can't like just like straight up tell someone, or else like people, that defeats the whole purpose of coaching. So I think that's why it's effective.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, it's good. I'm getting close to that time where I need to.
Okay. All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much for. I think this was an awesome conversation. I feel like we talked about so many interesting things, and you helped me kind of like demystify some, or like I think a lot of people are just curious as to like what coaching is, and I feel like our conversation was like a really interesting conversation that can kind of shed some light into. how, if someone is curious to get a sample session or wants to discuss more about coaching, how could they reach out to you?
Yeah, best is just man, I wish I had a way of doing it. My email address is a little bit weird because there's a dash in my
I could post it.
website.
Yeah.
Yeah, post it please. Yeah, just send me an email, jason@captains-chair.com. The social media links are just at Be Your Captain. Like you can send me a link on Facebook, send me a message on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah.
Or call me 618-795-4301. Like, you know, it's about building a relationship. Like, call me. Let's build a relationship. And if again, like, it's a helpful relationship. Like, if I can't help you, like, I will help you by sending you in a direction where someone can help you. So yeah, give me a call.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. I want to acknowledge you for your courage, your space, your grace and ease, and your big heart. It took me a while to kind of finally, or to hear, like, when, because I remember you used to always say like I love you, and I'd just be like, what? Like I was like, okay, thanks, Jason, bye. You know, but then I think like I'm like, oh, like he actually does, you know.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for that. It's much appreciated and
you're welcome. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for what you do. Thanks for the consistency of what you do, and especially in this time, like it means a lot to a lot of people to, for them to go on the different things and see you on and still doing your thing. It's probably one of the things that's keeping people move forward. So thanks for doing that.
uh, it's received. Thanks, Jason. Have fun.
All right, love you, brother.
Love you too.